Welcome back. Bloke and his American Bantu is coming to South African State Theatre, directed by internationally acclaimed television and theatre actor Sello Maake Ka Ncube, as well as starring award-winning Anele Nene. The play explores a simple friendship that led to international solidarity and cultural exchange between South Africa and Black America. The play is hitting the State Theatre from the 7th until the 24th of July. So to talk to us a little bit about the play, we've got director Sello Maake Ka Ncube as well as actor Anele Nene joining us in the studio for this. So gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you so much for waking up so early.
Thank you.
It's not easy during stage 6 and stage 2 and stage 4 load shedding.
You know.
It's very difficult. But I wanted us to talk a little bit about this play. I mean, it is set in the 1960s, and it does explore a very interesting relationship between two individuals from two different sides of the world. But perhaps at this, let us start off with you in terms of what exactly is the theme of this play? What is it all about?
The play is about friendship and also about, I mean, it deals with issues of race, you know, themes of race. It also it deals with exile, you know, and how exile can impact on somebody. But also it deals with the resilience of the spirit. And I think with the camaraderie and the connection of, you know, Africa and the diaspora, you know, and also during a difficult time. It happens at the time when, I mean, South Africa, you know, I mean, in South Africa, the Mandelas were being arrested and, you know, the struggle for freedom was heightened. And at the same time in America, you know, it was the civil rights movement. So, and then there's this friendship that has developed like in the mid-50s, you know, as pen pals, then there's been this communication of literary giants, you know, aspirant writers are looking up to an American, you know, well-acclaimed writer like Langston Hughes. And their, you know, letter correspondence was put together. Spiro Mahala actually discovered it at, I think, the University of Yale in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
So it's, listen, data bundles are not sitting yet. Don't even
you know,
worry about it.
and out of those letters, he actually devised this play.
It certainly is a play that explores a very significant space in our history. But it also goes into being able to speak about freedom was not attained without the cooperation and the workings and even the friendships that come in from the international community, and how they were particularly pertinent to showcasing and speaking about what was happening in the country, which I can imagine the apartheid government of the time tried so hard to suppress. For you to be taking on this role and to be starring alongside the greats, what does it mean for you, and how have you had to prepare yourself mentally, physically for this journey?
Well, the preparation process has been one interesting one, rather, very interesting, with, of course, the direction of the great Sir Maake Ka Ncube, you know. And I think for us, he also, we took a very different direction in terms of acting. Normally, we'd have to go out there, do the research and whatnot, but this time around, it was different, where he required of us to look inside ourselves. All the pain you carry, all the undealt trauma you carry. How about you take that to stage and watch and let the audience watch you deal with that, rather than being like, oh, I'm just going to act this out and kill it, but deal with it on stage for the first time instead of just pulling on an act. How about for the first time you show the actors, the audience and actors rather also how it feels to be in those situations and circumstances.
Yeah, and I mean this perhaps even propels actors and young actors, if I may, not to sound ageist, to tap into a history which is not documented in traditional textbooks. Right? So this young people grow up without knowing the likes of Bloke and as well as the writings of Langston Hughes, which actually shaped a very big part of our fight against an apartheid system. So in that case, how important was it for you to be able to deep dive and to teach the likes of those that are going to be coming before us about how you need to preserve history and history in its authentic, most purest form, where you can actually act it out to an audience? You
know, one of the things that the other day I was giving a talk for the GFC Road to the Discovery Summit. And I was talking to students at the TUT. And I think one thing that came out of my conversation with them, I actually realized that I'm now serving as a conduit between the past, the present, and maybe helping to define the future. One of the things that we haven't really done properly, I think, as black people, is that how do we maintain our history, and how do we maintain our tradition, and how do we also pass on the baton? You know, and I looked at even the theater space. I mean, if you look into the theater landscape, the highest, I mean, my predecessor is John Kani. But now, look at how many John Kanis or how many actors of John Kani's contemporaries are working at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's only one.
Yeah.
And that is serious. And I think also one thing that is happening is that also there's this whole thing of ageism, and where, I mean, the likes of me actually get cut off. You know, and it has happened for the past few years, and it has happened also as a result of those who are actually being in charge and not making sure that we maintain a certain kind of, you know, I guess even grading and age, and also just being able, young people to being able to walk into the space. You know, I mean, the other day I was listening to, I think John Robbie was on, had just visited 702, and how many, actually even of the black presenters, looked up to John Robbie.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how many of the young people today look up to my generation? And how many of us have we passed on the baton? And also, even again, you know, he was explaining, I think, my approach to acting, for instance. And my approach to acting, I've realized, I mean, sometimes, you know, I mean, there's this whole thing actors will say, you know, when I get into character, you know, and again, I think this is the biggest BS ever.
Oh, so you don't get into character?
No.
You don't get into character?
No.
What do you do then?
What are
It's like the kid that stole Christmas now.
Yeah, no.
You don't get into...
No, you don't get into character. Character is defined by actions. And writers basically will write the actions that the character must do. And you bring your whole life experience on the page. There is no character, but a series of actions.
So it's you performing the actions that are on the script.
Exactly. There's no, and I think what we would like to say, and I'm open to be challenged on this one, you know, and I think what we want to say is that we are focusing so intently on the series of actions that we forget everything else. I think that's what we want to say. You know, but there's no getting into character. You follow a series of actions. I mean, at this present moment, I mean, take our interview now. If it gets transcribed and get actors to perform it, do they have to get into character? They're going to look at what is it that we have done.
And do exactly it
and
is,
do exactly
and bring
themselves into it.
Yeah.
That is just, you know.
Well, you've certainly just gone and shifted the way in which we've used theatre for the past 30 years, but that's okay. Anele, but then in being able to look at the character that you are acting now and getting and performing the act of, talk to us a little bit about your character, and talk a little bit about how the journey as well has shaped you even, and has trained you and developed you as an actor.
Well, the character I play, which is Bloke, is, we always talk about this. He's a guy who's actually been through a lot, you know. Considering the apartheid system at the time, he had to skip the country and be exiled into London. And when he got there, he had the toughest time, you know. He didn't have money to pay rent, he didn't have a job, he was struggling to find jobs, and even if he did, they didn't last. So that's how he also came into communication with Langston Hughes. They were writing letters to one another, and then Langston Hughes did invite him over to New York to meet. And so when they met as well, that's when he started saying, hey, look, what can you do? What are you writing? And then that's when they came about developing the African Treasury, which is a compilation of different stories by Langston Hughes. And he gave Bloke a spot in that book. So that was his first breakthrough, if I may say, you know, which led up to the big thing, him writing his own book, which is titled Blame Me on History, where he just lays it down, what the apartheid regime did to him and the effects of that. And so he's just a guy who's had a lot of trials and tribulations, and in the story you kind of sort of see that all of his troubles that he's been through, being kicked out of his flats and all of that. So even for me, it has made me, I've even come to a realization that actually being on stage means that for actors, you deal with your demons on stage. That's when the world gets to see you just dealing with your problems on stage. Yeah. So it has given me that realization. So it has been a really interesting journey for me, a really interesting journey.
You speak with such an anchored depth, but it also speaks significantly to where you've made these actors go to. and in places of themselves where I think it's no longer about the shallow self, but it's also about the depth. But here's my concern.
Yeah.
Is there an appreciation for the work that needs to be done and the work that gets done here from an audience perspective? And I'll tell you why, because I worry about a generation that no longer regards theatre as a place of learning and a place of infotainment. That and there's nothing wrong with television, but it's almost as though we've limited ourselves to television and YouTube clips.
Yeah, yeah.
Without being able to explore all the different modes of being able to entertain yourself. Where are you seeing theatre in this country, and how do we bring back sexy in theatre, especially for the 20-something-year-olds, where I promise you, if we don't bring back the sexy, I worry that there's going to come a time where theatre is no longer a thing in this country, which would be a tragic loss.
You know, I mean, the mere fact that people go to, television, whatever, YouTube things, it's actually confirms what I think Bunny Simon, one of the the co-founders of the Market Theatre, once wrote. And he starts his essay by saying, there are those who believe that we are created in the image of God. And they also believe that God created man because he loves listening to stories. So if we believe as they do, then we know why. Then we understand why storytelling is fundamental to us. So storytelling goes a long way, you know, and it's just that I think we've got to create the theatre in such a way that it actually appeals, but not appeal in order by actually creating the spectacle and the glamour only, but appeals in how it works. And I think one of the things is, dispelling this whole thing of people getting into character and whatever. And somehow people talk about there's theatre acting and television acting. I think there are only two types of acting, good and bad. You know what I mean? And people do bad acting in the theatre and they call it theatre acting. No, it is just bad acting. And because all these two mediums deal about space. When you're dealing with theatre, you're dealing with an open space. And when you're dealing with camera acting, you know, it's, you know, you're kept up in whatever. And another thing is all about how do you reach? And people kill truth and authenticity in their performance because they think that, you know, I've got to, you know, play it big and it's got to be. No, that's bad acting.
No more overacting. There goes Jim Carrey.
And I think by telling, you know, and making people experience emotion. People want to experience something. They go to watch it. I mean, if you want to experience some emotional catharsis and seeing something authentic. And if you go to the theatre, and if people will tell, we begin to tell stories in a very authentic way and portrayal. Hey, man. People want to experience something all the time, and to create that, it's that's what, and it is possibly going to happen during my lifetime.
It will definitely happen during your lifetime. I do thank you so much for both of you, and of course, you want to make sure that you absolutely do check out this theatre production as well.
They better, Bloke, and tickets are flying out very high. I mean, quickly.
So make sure that you get yourself tickets. Enjoy it. Bloke and his American Bantu coming to the State Theatre. Director Sello Maake Ka Ncube, as well as actor Anele Nene. Well.